What's up, everybody? Welcome inside the MRN studios where, yes, it is, again, another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast brought to you by our friends at Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering coming on board again here this week. We appreciate you tuning in. Of course, NASCAR Coast to Coast, we cover all things NASCAR regional from coast to coast. Yours truly, Chris Wilner, MRN pit reporter here in studio. And from Connecticut, MRN announcer Kyle Rickey. K-Rick, we just had the biggest weekend in motorsports, Memorial Day weekend. Mother Nature, of course, having her input on both events in both Indianapolis and the Coke 600. We'll get to that in a little bit. But did you have a good weekend? Did you get to enjoy some of what Memorial Day is, not only on the racing aspect, but obviously, the weekend and what it stands for?
I did. It was, fairly nice, quiet second half of the weekend. Attended some of the parades here in town, in Killingly, and throughout the region. Started the weekend at the racetrack, a great night of competition at the Stafford Motor Speedway on Friday night. And it was overall a nice, relaxing weekend.
Well, I'm good because I was planes, trains, and automobiles between covering the ARCA Menard Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at Charlotte, and then getting to Indianapolis for my 18th Indy 500. Waited out the rain delay and all that good stuff. We got to see, I think, one of the best Indy 500s in recent time. But speaking of Charlotte, the pole sitter for that race joins us here this week on Coast to Coast. Spent some time with Andres Perez to talk about his season and the big news, though, that is coming up for him this weekend. He's going to make his Truck Series debut for Spire Motorsports. So one of the drivers in the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program, Rev Racing, is going to take the next step in his career. So we're going to talk to him as well. Plus, huge news dropping this week in the world of NASCAR with Stewart-Haas Racing announcing that they're going to be closing at the end of the year. We'll kind of get your reaction, Kyle, from that. And, of course, the calendar looking ahead to yet another full menu of racing across the country. But let's start with the weekend that was, Kyle. Cars Tour at Tri-County. Brendan Butterbean Queen, he talked to us at Wilkesboro. If you remember from that broadcast, of course, they didn't even get to run the Cars Tour race there. Ran the truck for the first time, finished fourth, said, this is the momentum I needed. Whether it doesn't matter what vehicle he's in, he just needed something good to happen. Well, that springboarded him into Tri-County, Kyle. Butterbean back on top in the Cars Tour yet again.
Yeah, led every lap. Great race. Looked like Cade Brown was going to charge and challenge early in the event, but he faded. It was Butterbean. Big wreck on the backstretch, though, with all the drivers with the last name that begins with H. Huffman, Honeycutt, Hettinger, all involved in this massive pile up on the back straightaway. I think most of them were able to continue. But, for Butterbean's second straight win at Tri-County, and did so in dominant fashion in front of a pretty good crowd.
Yep, and of course, he's a man of his word, goes to Waffle House with the $10,000 check, right, and parties there till God knows well past my bedtime, your and I's bedtime. But congratulations to him, his 25th career start. It gets the win. And, of course, with that is in back of the championship lead. So it's a really good battle between him. It's kind of a Lee Pulliam now versus Nelson Motorsports with Connor Hall right there as well. And Connor, of course, has had a stellar season in his own right, not only in the Cars Tour, but continuing to lead the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly National Championship, just racking up the local wins. But shout out to Chase Burrow as well, coming home with a second-place finish. And we like to talk about some of the drivers every week that are just perennial favorites up at the front. Deke McCaskill, obviously Carson Kvapil, really a non-factor in this one. But how about Chase Burrow getting it done there in second, and of course Deke coming home in the top three?
Yeah, great top three. Cade Brown faded. I think Kvapil spun midway through the event, which is why he wasn't really a factor up there. So always good to see new names at the front of the field, because it'll be only a matter of time if they can stay toward the front that we ultimately see them in victory lane.
100%. So Butterbean gets the win at Tri-County, and of course they're back in action again this week. Jake Bowman, though, shout out to him. Pro late model win number 1 on the Cars Tour. That division has now had several weeks of different winners. We saw Kyle Campbell come right out of the gate in the family-owned machine, win 2 in a row, but now that points championship is kind of getting a little bit closer and tighter together as we had different winners. But Jake Bowman won his first pro late model event of the year for the Cars Tour, and again back in action this weekend. Real quick, want to note too, the ASA Stars National Tour, they had been on hiatus for what seemed like several weeks, almost a month and a half now, as they got back in action on Memorial Day weekend, kind of kicking off the weekend right in NASCAR's backyard here just north of us at Hickory Motor Speedway for the Tar Heel 250. And Cole Butcher, who has stolen a couple good ones over the course of the year here this year. I was thinking about him in his battle with Jake Finch down south at Montgomery a couple of weeks ago. Well, he beat a stout field with the ASA Stars National Tour. Of course, the national super late model events that have been traveling the country, got started with it last year. Got the win with Casey Roderick in tow. Also had several drivers up near the front, but Donnie Wilson Motorsports, Kyle, has been a stalwart in the sport. Kind of been missing a little bit over the last maybe several weeks, maybe a couple months, but they found their stride as Cole Butcher wins his second consecutive race with Donnie Wilson Motorsports. So congratulations to him. It was a great event, and of course their season continues on as well.
It was a start at the front. It was a lap down. Now back on the lead lap and back in the lead. Here he is, the final time. The race leader, Tanner Gray, off turn number 2.
He won the pole for the Craftsman Truck Series race earlier this afternoon. He's been close in the ARCA Menard Series for the final time through turns number 3 and 4. Tanner Gray with a healthy margin.
He is pulling away right now and can coast to the checkered flag. Tanner Gray sees it, goes underneath it, takes the checkered flag, and Tanner Gray wins the General Tire 150 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. A big win for Tanner Gray, and Toyota, after being a lap down early on, rallies back to win it.
Well, that's how it sounded on the Motor Racing Network as Tanner Gray did the rebound of a lifetime in the ARCA Menard Series General Tire 150 from the front to the back to the front again, capturing his first ARCA win of 2024. Kyle, I know you weren't on the broadcast, but I'm sure you were locked in from Connecticut as we watched Tanner Gray, arguably with the best car on the racetrack, running for Joe Gibbs Racing. But to do it in the fashion he did, coming from that far back in the field, and again, that flat tire, that issue he had on pit road, I mean, that wasn't exactly that early on in the race. I mean, he had to really scratch and claw there in the second half, but got the job done when it mattered most.
Yeah, it was midway through the event. He had that tire issue, had to come to the pit lane, was able to battle back, and then won the race on old tires, holding off some of the drivers behind him that were on, fairly new tires or significantly newer tires than what he was on. So the ultra competitive start to the season for the ARCA Menard Series continued. At Charlotte now, it's at 6 different winners in the first 6 races. I know it's been a number of years since we have seen that. And congratulations to Tanner on getting it done last Friday night to open up what was a busy race weekend at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Indeed it was, and we dodged all the weather as well. I saw from the roof in turn 4, thunderstorms just skirt past us south, and we said, get out of here, we don't need you. And of course, we got both events in. But for Tanner Gray, Kyle, I mean, that's a driver that, he's what, now 5th year, I believe, in the Truck Series, hasn't won a race. He's been on the pole there at Charlotte, did it again this weekend, but it just hasn't seemed to work out for him. But what kind of confidence does just kind of moonlighting in an ARCA car, yeah, it's not a full-time, you're not running for the championship, but to go out and do the race that he did and how dominant of a car he's had, it's got to give you something moving forward.
Yeah, and he needed a boost of something. And you mentioned he's been in the Truck Series now for quite some time, doing a lot of circle track racing over the better part of the last decade after finding so much success in the NHRA Pro Stock Wars. I mean, he and Erica Enders had a lot of great races over the years in his championship season. He moved on to NASCAR, wanted to go circle track racing. I don't think found the transition to be as easy as he maybe thought it was going to be. But yeah, he needed a boost of confidence, and he got it last Friday night. We'll see if it's able to continue on into further events, including the Truck Series race this weekend at Gateway.
And kudos to Carson Quapple, of course, was also involved now, making his second ARCA Menard Series start after that top 5 finish at Dover. And I mean, he was probably the only one that had something for Tanner, but just could not keep up. You mentioned it too, Kyle, the fact he was on old tires at the end, but that Pinnacle Racing Group was just that much short from the stellar car and the performance that Tanner Gray had with JGR. So kudos, though, to Carson for getting a solid top 5. Will Kimmel, a top 5 finish. Nobody had that on their bingo card. At least I didn't coming into the weekend, but he qualified in the top 10, was up front in that bright red machine all afternoon long, and was there when it mattered. mattered for a top 5 finish. Our guest this week, Andres Perez, won the pole for the race, his second career pole, but unfortunately kind of got caught back in traffic after leading and trading for the lead early on in that race, and wasn't able to get back up toward the front. So a great event at Charlotte, Kyle. It was cool to see those cars moving around. I mean, we were running the top, we were running the middle, we were running the bottom. I mean, what else could you ask for at a place like Charlotte? And we did so in the truck race as well.
Yeah, and fairly early on in the ARCA race. It didn't take very long for the groove to widen out. Usually you start the race weekend with a fairly green racetrack right on the bottom, but didn't take them long to go, top, bottom, and even through the middle there a couple of times as they had to thread the needle through some lap traffic. But it was fun to watch. And you mentioned the truck race, a great event to cap the night, to start the race weekend there at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yep, ARCA graduate and former champion Nick Sanchez picked up his second career win. And speaking of our NASCAR regional drivers making a show there at Charlotte, I don't know if you caught this, but Raja Karuth was the only one doing the Larson line. Literally had that Spire truck with the right sides scraping up against the outside wall at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And he made a lot of time getting well inside the top 10, passing about 10 trucks there in that final green flag run to the finish. But for Corey Heim, boy, another race he wished he could forget. 2 issues on pit road. Put the most dominant truck yet again way behind. Wasn't able to catch back up, although he made a heck of an effort from like 23rd to 2nd or 3rd, but unfortunately couldn't get it done. But again, that team shooting themselves in the foot, Kyle, because Corey Heim at this point should have about 4 or 5 wins on the season.
And then you had the disqualification on top of it at the end with all, the missing lug nuts. I think there were 3, and once you get into having 3 or more, the penalties really, really start to add up. It's no longer just fines. Like if you were, missing or had an unsecure 1 or 2 lug nuts. So the disqualification really going to hurt that team, and drop him deep in the championship standings, but they do have wins. So we'll see what happens this weekend at Gateway. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, all eyes will be on the regular season championship that Corey was going for as well. Obviously going to be well into the playoffs, but regular season championship comes with that extra playoff bonus points as well. So we'll see if they can rebound at Gateway, another track that he's been very good at as well. Some other finishers and top performers from the weekend, Kyle. Keelan Harvick, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago when he did the double with the Legend car as well as the Bandolero, I believe he was running. He won the Legend race at Hickory Motor Speedway, kicked off the ASA Stars National Tour weekend up there at the America's, or a place where NASCAR stars are born, is what the racetrack is dubbed. And certainly Keelan could be one as well, following in his father's footsteps. Ty Majeski won his 3rd ASA Midwest race of the season, 3 for 3 to start the year. This one at Jefferson Speedway in Wisconsin. Kyle, he's been absent in the truck series. I mean, we've talked about ThorSport being kind of, missing in action when it comes to being in the win column, or heck, even just their slew of top 5, top 10 finishes. But doesn't matter when that 91 car rolls out on the super late model scene. He's 3 for 3.
No surprise. I mean, he has always been strong in that ASA Midwest Tour, whether he's running full-time, part-time, 1 race a year, he seems to be a factor. I heard him in Charlotte pre-race. They had optimism that ThorSport would finally, get back to their winning ways, or at least have good runs. I mean, they've been pretty absent from the top 5 for much of this year, and even going back to last year. And I think, if memory serves me right, it's been a while ago, but I think he had some early race issues at the Charlotte Motor Speedway that put him out of contention well before the first stage was even in the books. So a lot of optimism, and unfortunately, not another not so good night for a championship winning organization.
Yeah, but the season rolls on. Of course, the truckers will be out at Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway for a doubleheader with the NASCAR Cup Series. And of course, it's a split weekend this weekend. The ARCA racers, ARCA West, and NASCAR Xfinity Series are going to be out in Portland. Yours truly will be a part of that broadcast as well. And I believe Kyle Rickey is out there as well. Are we going to see each other this weekend?
We are. We're literally going from coast to coast.
Literally, yeah. We're going to enjoy that 6-hour flight, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Congratulations, to Caleb Armstrong. If you're a pavement sprint car fan, I thought this was cool. Passed his cousin Dakota Armstrong on the 4th and final corner of the final lap at the Little 500 in Anderson Speedway in Anderson, Indiana, for a marquee win. He's been trying for so many years, has come close. The Armstrongs have been a staple. I used to race against both of them back in quarter midget days, but now that they attend to their farming business, they come out of retirement every once in a while and put on a show, and to have the cousins go at it at Anderson Speedway. Little 500 is 500 laps, 33 open-wheel, non-wing sprint cars at a little pavement quarter mile is something to see, and if you haven't seen it, check it out next year. But congratulations to him. And then Jake Finch, a little bump and run over Augie Grill to win at Montgomery for his Pro Late Model win. Jake Finch taking a book out of some others that we've seen this year, Kyle, but he's starting to rack in the late model wins. Now it's just, we'll see if it can translate to more ARCA wins after that Talladega victory earlier this year.
Yeah, and he led every lap en route to that Talladega victory. We're beginning to see more of these second and third generation drivers, very familiar names, come up through the ranks. And I think Jake Finch is obviously a star on the rise right now, first at the short track level or at the local level. And we're beginning to see him find more and more success on the bigger racetracks, like you mentioned at the Talladega Superspeedway just a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see if the more recent success will carry over.
Busy weekend. That is the weekend that was. And, of course, that means now time to step aside for a quick break. But when we come back, my visit with Andres Perez, balancing NASCAR Mexico and his full-time effort there, as well as the ARCA Menard Series, and looking forward to now making his Truck Series debut coming up this weekend with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Our conversation is next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering. And, of course, joining us now via in studio, in three-dimensional. Welcome back to the show, Andres Perez. We're ready to have a big week here in Charlotte. And your week just got even bigger because this week you announced you're going to make your Truck Series debut in a couple weeks at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. First off, how did this deal come together with Spire, and just walk me through your emotions of that phone call and getting the deal done?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. Like you said, it's been a very busy and good week. I'm like having a lot of fun, and that's for sure. And yeah, we announced that I'm going to Spire. It just came, I think, naturally because of the partners and the place where I'm at with like Rev and Chevrolet. So it was just like kind of like a natural up the ladder thing. And yeah, so I'm really happy that we got to announce that. Also a very big sponsor from Mexico, which is also very good. So yeah, I've been working hard, I think, trying to control all what I can do before the race, because we got 20 minutes of practice to like adapt to a lot of things. So the better prepared you for there, is better. So yeah, really cool about that. Excited, a little bit nervous, not gonna lie, but I think it's gonna go really good.
Have you been out there to Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway? What are your thoughts, at least looking at it from afar before we get going?
So I've never been to the place, or I've never driven it, but
okay.
I've obviously done a lot of sim work, getting ready for that. I think I'm excited about that one. I think it's a different track, which is for me a good thing, because it's everybody I think is used to running some type of tracks, and that's just different with like downshifting. So I think I'm excited about that. It's probably tough. In a way, a lot of things are gonna go on at the same time for me, but no, I think it's gonna be really good. We've been doing a lot of sim work, like I said, which is really important considering we only got like 20 minutes before the race.
So this racetrack, it kind of almost similar to Phoenix in a way, just because of how different the corners are. Do you think that's gonna help? Because you've been at Phoenix and have run really well there over the past.
Yes, yeah, I've been to Phoenix. I could say I can think about the most is Phoenix in terms of like here in the U.S. But in Mexico, we have actually very similar tracks, which I was thinking about it before. We have tracks that are like very similar to that one in Puebla. So yeah, that's another thing. That's a different style, which I think I'm more used to that than others. And
you mentioned too, I know you're gonna have some pretty special sponsors with you. Herdez brand Salsa, Telcel, Holy Guacamole. I mean, say this is not a pretty special opportunity for you, but, and by the way, that's making me hungry just thinking about it, but what is it like bringing them on board for this opportunity?
Yeah, I know. It's just great. Like Mexican sponsor, Mexican driver,
Yeah.
green and white truck. It's definitely not going to go unnoticed, that's for sure. And yeah, they were very big in motorsports a couple years ago, and to bring them back in this opportunity. And yeah, I'm just really happy that they're coming in. Also, Scuderia Telmex, which they've supported my career for a while now. So all these Mexican people helping me, I think just really proud to be the guy driving the car and be able to represent them. But yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity for me and also for the team. It's just everything came together really good. So yeah.
I know we talked in February on this show about how crazy your schedule is, right, between ARCA and bouncing back to NASCAR Mexico. How is your season down south of the border? How's it been going?
It's been really good. I was so close to winning one race. I missed it on the last restart. But in terms of like speed, we're up there. Just we missed one race like 2 weeks ago because of my scheduling problems, like I said. Actually, this weekend I'm doing the Charlotte race on Friday in the ARCA stuff. And then Saturday morning I fly to Mexico and go straight to the race there because it's a Saturday night race. So yeah, it's like I said, there's a lot of complications which probably it's not ideal in terms of like getting adapted to a car and stuff like that, but just the fact of running a lot and being on top of a car every single weekend is just great for me. So yeah, we're doing really good in the ARCA series in terms of like championship. In Mexico too, we're really good in the standings too, considering we were in there for a race. So we're just trying to get that win in whichever comes first. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlotte could be a good opportunity for you this weekend. But as the points leader, is it frustrating seeing that goose egg in the win column? Because you guys have been so fast, so consistent, top 5, top 10 finishes, but still missing that win. Is it starting to get annoying a little bit?
Yeah, no, it's definitely annoying. It's what we worry the most, I think. Like, obviously we want to be consistent for the points, but at this very moment, I think the win is what we want to get the most. If it comes sooner rather than later, that's obviously better. But yeah, I think the win will just change our season in terms of like, I don't want to be a champion without a win. Obviously it'll be great, but yeah, the plan is to keep pushing, winning races and be on top, be like driving towards the front.
Absolutely. And looking at your polo, Rev Racing's been a big part of your career. Of course, the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program celebrated 20 years this year. We got a lot of you guys down at Darlington a couple of weeks ago. How critical has this last couple of years been for you in your career with Max Siegel, Rev Racing, and this whole opportunity?
Oh, it's been big. Like, I was just from Mexico doing all the process of moving my racing stuff to the U.S. It's so different. Like, not even the racing side of it, like the culture, language, so many other stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And Rev has been just great helping me with that process. I've been with them guys for a couple of years now, and just critical part of my like progress. Obviously, these opportunities like the truck race I'm doing, it wouldn't be possible without them. Everybody at Rev Racing and NASCAR Drive for Diversity, for sure.
Yeah, and that partnership with Spire getting you this opportunity. Have you talked to Nick Sanchez a lot as somebody that's kind of gone through this a little bit before you and now is excelling at the truck series, maybe for some advice before we get going at Gateway?
Yeah. So he's my teammate in Rev and technical teammate in Spire. Yeah. So I think he's in a very similar situation. Also Raja, he was also part of the program and now in Spire. So yeah, them two guys, I think I can trust what they say for sure.
What do we expect here at Charlotte? Obviously, a mile and a half, you've been strong at 7th last year, but what are the difficulties of a mile and a half in an ARCA car?
So I think it's a tough track. Like I think of the miles and a half we go, it's the more technical. It has a lot of bumps in turn 3 especially. So that just makes it different and very like hard to be consistent. That's what I would say. But I think with the experience I have from the last year, I feel way more confident going into this weekend knowing that I know what to expect for sure. So I can start like worrying about my car and everything since the lap 1. So yeah, we're just trying to get a good race, be consistent. Obviously being towards the top 5 to keep on the points lead, obviously, but obviously looking for that win. That's what we got in mind for sure.
Absolutely, and you've got a teammate too. LeVar Scott's going to be in the race as well. Just describe the camaraderie with this whole Rev team because you've got several drivers, some bouncing around between different series, but seems like you have a good group this year.
Yes, no, LeVar for sure. Like we've been together for a long time too. And I think we work together very good as teammates because we're close in every session we go to, and we I'd say we push each other for better. So yeah, I think we'll be very good. We'll be up top, up towards the front part of the group, hopefully, and yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Finally, as we get ready for your big debut at Gateway with the Truck Series, just describe kind of the trajectory you're on in your career. Is this where you thought you'd be as far as where you wanted to be at this time in your life, in your career?
Yeah, I'd say yes. I'm really happy with the place I am. Like, I made my switch to NASCAR in Mexico a couple years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, because I started in road course. I moved from road courses to ovals a long time ago, and I think this is like the ideal path that we should have taken. Like NASCAR Mexico, then went to the ARCA series, and yeah, this step to the trucks is very big in terms of like competition. It's going to be one of my biggest steps so far, and obviously there's a lot of pressure with it, but I think I'm ready in the fact that I've been doing this quite a while now. I know I've worked so much on the other side of things, which is like talking to the crew chiefs, understanding how the culture in NASCAR works. So I think I'm ready for it.
Well, we are so excited for you, man. Like, kudos to everything that you've done this year. Looking forward to watching you not only this weekend, but when you make your debut. And just enjoy it, right? You're always going to remember your first, so hopefully you enjoy it.
No, that's the plan. It's obviously to have fun, but we're not taking apart that we want a good result. The truck's going to be fast, and I'm just trying to control the controllables and make it a very good day.
It's all you can do.
Yep.
Well, Andres Perez, appreciate your time here joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Best of luck as well here in Charlotte and at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. More to come here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering after this.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering. Great conversation with Andres Perez. We wish him the best weekend. And Kyle, I would think that 7 truck, who has had drivers like Kyle Busch and others in it, Connor Zilisch making his debut and nearly winning, but unfortunately had that lap 1 incident at COTA, came back to 4th. But we know it's a good truck. It's a race-winning truck. We're on a road course. Andres Perez has not on a road course. We're at a Gateway racetrack that, yes, he hasn't been to, but he's been to Phoenix so many times in different machines to where that racetrack is very similar, and you heard that kind of in that conversation. So wouldn't be surprised if he gets a top 10 at least here coming up this weekend.
I feel like he adapts well, and we saw this when we first saw him at the Bristol Motor Speedway a couple of years ago. It's like, who is Andres Perez de Lara at the time? That's how we referred to him. And we're like, he might be a factor. And he was. He passed the most cars through the field. He started like 20th or 21st and in a fairly quick race and made his way up and into the top 5. And ever since that afternoon, we've really took note of him. He's been close so many times at all these different type of racetracks that the ARCA Menard Series goes to. It's only a matter of time before he gets a win. And now to have the opportunity in a national series or a national series at NASCAR on a fairly big stage this weekend, I think he'll adapt well. He's in good equipment, as you mentioned. It's winning equipment, whether it be on ovals or road courses, and look for him to contend at least in the top 10 here on Saturday.
I would think so. So congratulations to Andres. We'll be cheering for you. And, of course, that truck is going to be all decked out and everything with Mexican flavor, which is perfect. I mean, he's got holy guacamole. He's got a salsa company on there. I mean, it made me hungry just looking at it, Kyle. I mean, but it's an iconic-looking truck, and it's going to be really cool to see out there at Gateway this weekend. Some big news and notes coming in the world of NASCAR this week before we get to the calendar, Kyle, and we'll start with the obvious big one. The news coming Tuesday afternoon that Stewart-Haas Racing will be shutting its doors for good following the 2024 season. Of course, that means charters are going to be sold away, equipment and infrastructure, and obviously it's impacting the most. It's the men and women that work at Stewart-Haas Racing, a championship organization, race-winning organization for well over a couple decades, and unfortunately now there's not only drivers that are going to be needing to find a new home, but a lot of crew people and business staff as well. So Kyle, your initial reactions, because we were talking in the commercial break. It's an interesting time for the sport right now, and I think this domino certainly proves that.
Yeah, between all the charter negotiations that we keep hearing about and have been hearing about for, I think, the better part of 7 or 8 months now, that I think are almost completed. We'll find out here in the coming weeks. And then this news this week about, one of the teams or one of the sports mega teams closing down. I mean, 4 cars, massive building, massive facility, a lot of people that are going to be looking for new work for 2025 and beyond, and kind of sucks because it's a race team that we've talked about for years. We love to see these short track drivers come up through the ranks and make it to the Cup Series. Well, look at the 4 drivers at Stewart-Haas Racing right now. They have all come up through the short tracks, whether it be dirt or asphalt, through all different regions of the country, that have been able to make their way to the Cup Series, thanks to Stewart-Haas Racing and Tony Stewart and his efforts with that race team. Josh Berry just a couple of years ago was the national champion on the short track level for NASCAR in the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. You have Ryan Preece, a former NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour champion. Noah Gregson's found so much success in super late model racing and in the West Series on the West Coast, and has come up through the ranks. And obviously Chase Briscoe with everything that he's done in the dirt track world. So they have all the corners covered, and it's exactly what fans have been wanting now for decades. We need more short track drivers at the top level, and unfortunately that's the team that now is going away here in about 5 months' time.
And unfortunately too, this is a money driven sport. We all know that, right? And sponsorships are key, but losing, I think I heard nearly 8 figures in sponsorship money. I mean, that was probably the nail in the coffin in terms of just the future of the team. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about Tony Stewart and Gene Haas not really present around anymore. Tony Stewart with his NHRA team, moving things along with that, and his wife Leah. But Kyle, I mean, we look at Smithfield leaving, with Eric Almirola. You look at, I think Gear Wrench wasn't involved anymore. Obviously, they lost Busch Light when Kevin Harvick retired.
Yep.
How hard is it to keep sponsorships in this modern day and age when a team like Stewart-Haas Racing can't, and they're obviously a mega championship winning team?
Yeah, I was thinking about this last night. You don't refer to the cars in any team by their sponsor anymore. In the old days, it was the Good Wrench car, Dale Earnhardt, the Skoll car of Harry Gant, the DuPont car of Jeff Gordon. They had these sponsors for every race, year after year after year after year. And we don't see that anymore. You look at even the top teams of the sport, they have 4, 5, 6 different sponsors over the course of a year, different looks seemingly every week, and sometimes often hard to identify, who's driving what, from week to week. So it's hard, and it's been hard, I think, for the better part of a decade now. I think Lowe's was probably the last established sponsor in the sport with a single team and Jimmy Johnson. We see Napa more often than not with Chase Elliott, but other than that, it's tough to identify cars and sponsors like we once did years ago. And that's because, the dollar value has increased so much that, it's hard for companies to invest that kind of money right now.
Yeah, for sure. And so again, we'll kind of see how this all plays out. Obviously, the good news, if there is any, you've got 6 months to kind of figure things out. Yeah. Obviously, drivers now are going to be trying to perform as if it's a job interview to try to land a seat for next year, wherever that may be. Obviously, 4 charters will be available on the Cup Series side. Who grabs those? Who expands? Those are all going to be the next stories to come out as we continue to push through the 2024 season. Obviously, if you're a driver under the Stewart-Haas Racing banner now, you want nothing more than to get to victory lane and be a part of the postseason and extend this final year as under the SHR banner. So for us, that'll be out on the West Coast at Portland. We'll see on the Xfinity side. We'll see what Cole Custer can do, because he has been a guy that I even talked to last week before Charlotte that was saying, the atmosphere at SHR was certainly up in the air, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety. Obviously now it's more on the sadness level, but now there's motivation to go out and perform for your team. And for all your employees. So we'll see what happens here in the coming weeks, but obviously huge news in the NASCAR world. Not so huge news, but pretty cool too as well. Ross Chastain is going to take a page out of what Kyle Busch, Daniel Hemrick, and several others are doing this year. He's going to run a late model, the Number 1, Tootsie Chevrolet, going to be prepared by Rackley War Group. He's going to run it at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in Music City, 150 or Battle of Broadway 150 out at Music City and Nashville Fairgrounds. That's going to be coming up right before NASCAR weekend, June 27th. So leading into the NASCAR weekend, how exciting would that be for Ross to get back behind the wheel of a late model? We've seen him do a lot of stuff here lately. He's been up at Millbridge running a micro, just trying to keep fresh in the seat. So really cool for that. All right, let's get to the calendar before we say goodbye, Kyle, and we get to talk about the Ground Pounders again, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour back in action, the J&R Precast 150 at Seekonk Speedway. That'll be on Saturday coming up June 1st. You can watch that coverage on Flow Racing. Obviously, all the talk has been the championship battle. Ronnie Silk has got a 14-point lead over Justin Bonsignor. Austin Beers still in the mix as well in the championship battle. But this was a race last year that Matt Hirschman kind of took with and ran with. Matt's kind of been a little MIA this year. Obviously, I know he's not running the full tour, but when he's there, hasn't quite found victory lane. Is this the weekend, if he's in the entry list, that maybe he does it, or is it going to come down to our championship favorites?
And I feel like that's everywhere with Matt, not just on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, but, we saw Stafford Speedway and the Spring Sizzler wasn't really ever a factor. Was running up front last week at the Thunder Road Speed Bowl up in Vermont, part of the Monaco Modified tri-track event, was spun while racing for the lead and unfortunately finished deep in the field. He likes the bull rings. This is kind of the third race in a 3-race bull ring stretch for the modifieds. The Monadnock Speedway a couple weeks ago, Riverhead, and now here at the Seekonk Speedway, all fairly tight third-mile ovals or quarter-mile ovals. He's tough, but so isn't Justin Bonsignor and Ron Silk on these racetracks. Going to be a tight field, a good race. I think there's 25 cars entered for the event on Saturday. Always fun to watch. Probably going to come down to those three, and I look for Justin Bonsignor to claim the win.
Patrick Emmerling has had a nice season as well. Kind of been quiet but consistent. Obviously, we talked about his struggles at Richmond, but aside from that, I thought he's been pretty decent as well. So there are some names that could creep up, but you're right. It is a bull ring. It's tight. It's fast. You make one mistake or your one misstep on a corner entry, you're going to find yourself either into somebody else or into the outside walls. So the aggression level is going to be there for sure. Just going to be how people manage that over the course of the run. So it's going to be exciting. If you have not seen a race at Seekonk Speedway, tune into Flow Racing Saturday night, June 1st, because it is going to be fun as we continue to roll through the 2024 season. Again, Ron Silk, a 14-point advantage over Justin Bonsignor in the championship heading into this weekend. Now off to the West Coast, because of course we are covering NASCAR East Coast to West Coast. We've got the ARCA West Series back in action for their third race of the 2024 season, the Portland 112 at Portland International Raceway. That'll be Friday afternoon local, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can listen to that call right here on the Motor Racing Network. Kyle Rickey, Chris Wilner will be there. And Kyle, it's a fun trip to Portland because it's so unique. It's one of the flattest road course races we have, and that poses its own challenge, but it's in a park. There's a lot of runoff, but turn one, man, bottle them up as they dive in there to that tight right-hander. It's going to be wild.
If memory serves me right, the ARCA series anyway, on starts and restarts last year, did not use turns 1 and 2. They just kept on digging into turn 3. Got a full lap under their belt before they used turns 1 and 2, which is about as tight as you can get. I mean, we see the IndyCar guys. What's that? The IndyCar guys try to use it. I mean, I feel like every time IndyCar goes in there, they wreck half the field. The same thing with the Xfinity series the last couple of years, especially on those late race restarts. They just drive in there and 3-4 wide, half of them come out. It's fun to watch, but it can make for a long day for some of those race teams. Going to be a great race to the ARCA West Series on Friday to begin the weekend. Sean Hangarani, the current championship point leader, runs well on road courses. I believe I saw Brandon Jones on the entry list as far as an Xfinity Series driver that's going to be pulling double duty, and we saw Cole Custer do that last year and all but dominated that event on Friday before the Xfinity race on Saturday. So we'll look for Brandon to do maybe something similar as he has a lot more laps turning both right and left. Gio Ruggiero going to come over from the East Coast and run there. And then, of course, the West Coast favorites like Trevor Huddleston going to be in the field as well.
That's right, and Trevor's going to want some redemption after narrowly missing out on his win at Kevin Harvick's Kern County last month as he got sniped at the end by Cole Raz. So Trevor will be one to watch as well. There's some other names in the field, but you mentioned the championship leader, Sean Hingorani, of course, won the title last year, but this will be his third race with a third different team. He has not had the same team more than once so far this year, but yet he leads the championship. So that a difficult task in itself. We'll see what he can do, I believe, for Cherry Pits Racing coming up this weekend at Portland. Of course, again, on MRN, 7 p.m. Eastern time from Portland. It's going to be a fun one, and we'll see if that trend continues with a NASCAR Xfinity Series regular coming over, doing a nice job in the ARCA race to gain experience. And then obviously we saw last year Cole Custer nearly win the Xfinity race before, unfortunately, Melee in that final restart had him and Parker Kligerman and Justin Allgaier shipped off the racetrack, and we saw what happened with Cole then coming back and then winning the race. So maybe that'll be something that happens to Brandon Jones. We'll have to wait and see. NASCAR Canada north of the border, boy, we're covering every square inch of North America. They're back in action as well. Round 2 at Autodrome Chaudière. That is Saturday on Flow Racing. You can catch that coverage at 5:15 Eastern time. Early in the season, so really hard to kind of give a prediction, Kyle, but Marc-Antoine Camirand won the season opener at CTMP. He's a defending winner here. Can he go 2 for 2, you think?
I don't know. Autodrome Chaudière, obviously a much different track. It's an oval compared to the long road course that they were on at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park to open the season 2 weeks ago. A great field, a competitive field. They had 31 entries a couple of weeks ago. I don't think quite as many this weekend, but it's going to be a great race. All the favorites are there. LP Dumoulin trying to get back to victory lane. Andrew Ranger, the list goes on and on and on of good drivers that have been in that series for a long time that can get the job done here this weekend. And this might be an early peek into who will be a championship favorite with this first oval race here on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a tough racetrack. NASCAR Canada round 2 again Saturday on Flow Racing. Cars Tours on the Flow channel as well Saturday evening at Langley Speedway. Kyle, this is a critical race when you just look at some of the drivers like Butterbean coming in who are also going to compete with the Hampton Heat there, part of the Virginia Triple Crown. So this is kind of the tune-up here as we get to the start of June. Butterbean is your current Cars Tour points leader in late model stock series. It's Lee Pulliam, Nelson Motorsports with Connor Hall. We talked about at the top of the show. Is this kind of the time of year Butterbean can get on a roll, especially as we look at what's ahead down the rest of the schedule?
Well, so far so good after what we saw in North Wilkesboro and what we saw last weekend with the Cars Tour race. He's got momentum on his side right now. He's going to a racetrack that he knows well at the Langley Speedway. And you're right. It's critical for a lot of teams because there are so many big events at that racetrack coming up, including the Hampton Heat, part of the Virginia Triple Crown here in July. So should be a good race. Look forward to trying to tune in while we're in Portland.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with the time change, but yet again, we should hopefully be able to make it work if we get back from the racetrack. But you're for sure right. Saturday, again, Cars Tour out at Langley, and we'll see what happens there. And also, I think I wouldn't be surprised if a Brent Cruz does something as well. He's right up there in the top 3 in points as well. Some other races Friday. Kyle, want to give us previews Stafford has to offer back to local action on Friday.
Yeah, back to local action, just the 5 weekly divisions, no extra distance events for anybody. Corey DiMatteo looking to go 4 in a row in the SK Modifieds. The last 3 wins for Corey. He's had passes in the last couple of laps to get the checkered flag, so it's been some great racing there. A lot of controversy last week in the SK Light Modified 40-lap feature that was won by Brian Sullivan after contact on the last lap with Nick Anglace and Megan Fuller battling for the lead. So they'll all be back on Friday. Part of a kids' night at the racetrack where the youngsters race big wheels on the front straightaway.
I'd like to come up for that. I think I can still fit on one. What do you think? Will you allow me to race?
You would fit. You could race Bonza.
Oh boy, that'd be content for next week for sure. Also Friday night, Kyle Larson is going to be back with the High Limit Sprint Car Series at Lawrenceburg. Obviously, shout out to Kyle in completing the Indianapolis 500. I know he came out pretty dejected after speeding on pit road, but more so was just upset at the way the whole weekend came out too. With the rain, he didn't even get to run any laps at the 600. Said I felt really disappointed about this whole weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. I believe he is coming back to do the double attempt next year. Mother Nature, please cooperate. But again, Kyle Larson will be back, so some sprint car action for the NASCAR star this weekend. Saturday, Jennerstown, all your local racing. Riverhead, Berlin is in action as well. Hickory, Bowman Gray, and even some super modifieds at Oswego's. So I know that's the home track for one of our MRN chief analysts, Mr. Todd Gordon. So pretty good stuff. All right, Kyle, before we go, your driver of the week, and you had plenty to choose from on a busy Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I want to say Joseph Newgarden because that pass on the last lap of the Indy 500 was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. But to stick to the short track world, Carson Lofton getting it done last weekend in the Southern Modifieds, his 5th win of the season, I believe. He was able to avoid all of the emotion of the night between Burt Myers and the entire pit area during the crate modified event, and then Ryan Newman and Tommy Baldwin Jr. During, or I guess right after the Southern Modified race. A lot happened at Franklin County, and Carson Lofton was able to avoid it all and take another win. He's got that tour figured out right now.
Yeah, shout out to Tommy, because I wouldn't want to go toe-to-toe with Ryan Newman. I mean, granted, Tommy's a little bit bigger than me, but sticking up for Luke and the two really getting after it, I mean, wow. There was a lot going on for sure. Some heated tempers at Franklin County. If you haven't seen it, go on social media. The video is just incredible. But, yeah, everybody luckily got out of that situation okay. And you're right, Carson Lofton continues to dominate in the Smart Tour, and just, man, did not see that coming this year, but what a run for that young man. All right, don't forget, MRN is on the air this weekend. It is split crew time as we get to that busy part of the 2024 season. We'll have a crew like yourself, myself, and Kyle Rickey out in Portland. The rest of the MRN crew out at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. First things first, Friday night, it is the ARCA Menard Series West at Portland. The Portland 112 again, 7 p.m. Eastern time is going to be the airtime for that. And then, of course, Saturday, it's a triple header between Cup Series practice and qualifying at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The Toyota 200, for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series out at Gateway. That is going to be at 1 p.m. And then, of course, go back to the West Coast, and we conclude things in Portland with the NASCAR Xfinity Series Pacific Office Automation 147 at 4 p.m. Eastern, and that all leads into Sunday, NASCAR Live Race Day, getting you set for the Enjoy Illinois 300. That is at 2:30 Eastern Time. So going to be a good one. Kyle, looking forward to seeing you three-dimensionally yet again, way out west in Portland.
It'll be fun. It's going to be a long day getting there. I think I'm going through Atlanta to get to Portland, Oregon from the Northeast. I think you're going through somewhere in Texas, Dallas maybe. So from Charlotte. So it's going to be quite the trek out there, but we will literally have the country covered just getting to Portland on Thursday afternoon.
You're darn right. Makes only sense that the coast-to-coast hosts are literally going coast-to-coast this weekend. Good stuff. Well, appreciate all of you for tuning in here this week to NASCAR Coast to Coast. Of course, this is brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering. Enjoy your full slate of short track racing this weekend. Of course, we'll break it all down next week.